The Edge of Fate is pretty much Destiny 3. Everything just feels so fresh and new. I wasn't expecting it to feel so different. Okay, so first of all, I gotta say, before we jump into this comment, I appreciate just about any positivity that's surrounding Destiny 2 at this point. So to this person, whoever you are out there, I'm happy that you're enjoying the game, and I'm happy that you feel that the Edge of Fate has been so refreshing for you. And I do agree that this expansion has brought a lot of foundational, fundamental changes to Destiny 2 that do feel Destiny 3-like. I think the biggest example of this would be the new armor system / the new loot tier system. Now we have a brand new set of armor stats that are actually affecting gameplay. They're actually affecting the way that we chase after loot in the game, the way that we think about build crafting when it comes to armor. We have the armor set bonuses, which are such a great addition to the game. We've also got the portal, which is like one of the biggest changes to the UI of Destiny that we've ever gotten, and that is like, it's a crazy feeling when you boot up the game for the first time and you see that portal there. And by the way, these changes aren't only big, but I think that these are good changes. These are steps in the right direction for Destiny, in my opinion. But here's where I'm gonna get a little bit more negative about this comment. Ultimately, I don't agree with what they're saying here, and here's why. The Edge of Fate, yes, is a refreshing experience for Destiny 2, but it is nowhere near as refreshing or as different as Destiny 3 would be. Or should be, is what I should say. In my opinion, the big argument, the big reason that I think Destiny 3 needs to be made is that it would provide a true fresh start for Destiny. It would be a brand new frontier. The Edge of Fate, although I do think it's a good expansion and there's lots of good stuff in there, ultimately, it still carries all of the baggage of Destiny 2. And Bungie has always found themselves, I think, kind of in the middle of these two battling ideas, where one is that you want to keep alive kind of like the legacy of the franchise, you want to keep the legacy players around, but the other one is that you also want to provide brand new experiences, new fresh starts for new players to jump into the game. And at the end of the day, the Edge of Fate to me kind of feels like it's like a half measure. It's kind of like a new start. I know that, you know, narratively we're doing a brand new thing here. We're kind of doing a new thing with the loot. But also, like I said, at the end of the day, this is still Destiny 2. It's still held back by all of the problems that Destiny 2 has always had. The gameplay loop is still very much the same, which I realize with Destiny 3, the gameplay loop would also probably still be pretty much the same. I don't think that this is really like a great starting point for new players, which is, I think, one of the main things that Destiny has to focus on right now is getting new people into the game. I've been having a lot of fun with Destiny recently, and I've been waiting for a good time to recommend it to my friends to jump on and play. Like, this is something that I wasn't gonna do with the Final Shape, even though the Final Shape was great. It just didn't really feel like a good starting point to like get into Destiny. It kind of felt like the opposite even, which isn't to say that that was a bad expansion, because we all know that the Final Shape was great, and it was that was a great time to be a Destiny player. It seemed like people were pretty much happy. But now I think we're really feeling the effects of Destiny 2 being really unapproachable from the perspective of a new player. So like Final Shape wasn't recommendable to new people, and it seems like one of Edge of Fate's main jobs was to have that recommendability factor for new players to jump into the game. And it doesn't quite hit that mark, in my opinion. So I might have gotten just a little bit off topic there, but my overall point is that this is not Destiny 3. It's not even close to Destiny 3. I've heard some people calling it like Destiny 2.5, and even that I feel like is a bit much. Edge of Fate is probably closer to like Destiny 2.3 in my opinion, and it still feels like Bungie is kind of like, they have one foot in both camps of like continuing on Destiny 2 and also starting something new, which is just a bad place to be in overall. I made a video a while back about why I think Destiny 3 is clearly the best path forward for the franchise and for Bungie as a developer. I'm gonna link that video in the description because this is a point that I go over in more detail in that video, so you can go ahead and check that out if you're interested in that. But thank you for leaving that comment, and welcome back to another episode of Between the Lines. This is the show where I take your opinions, however good, however bad, and I just talk about them, pretty much. for your entertainment. So hopefully you enjoy that. Today, I wanted to do a special Destiny 2 Edge of Fate themed episode of the show, so that's what we're going to be doing. As always, I've gotten these replies over on Threads. If you want to be a part of the next episode, I'll link my account in the description below. You can go over there, and that's where I will put the prompts up for the next episode of Between the Lines. And with that intro out of the way, let's get on to the show. Armor 3.0 is just an excuse to get us back on the loot treadmill, and I don't like it. Okay, so this is kind of a common sentiment that you'll see among Destiny spaces online, not even with just Edge of Fate stuff, but I think across the years, you'll always kind of see this idea of like, oh, I don't want to... Why is Bungie making me grind this activity? Or why do I have to redo this certain thing? And it's always so funny to me because this idea is like, to me, is so counter to what the whole point of Destiny 2 even is. I think to put it like as simply as I can, Destiny 2 is a type of game that is more about the journey than the destination. For me, it's not about like, I don't boot up Destiny 2 and like just go open up my vault and like look at all the cool stuff that I've got in my vault. The main reason that I boot up Destiny 2 was because there are more things out there that I want to collect and then put into my vault. Or not just put in my vault, but like also use for builds and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? It is that loot chase that is the game. Like people always talk about, oh, it's the, the loot treadmill. And I don't know what to say because the game is the loot treadmill. Like, that is Destiny. And I say this with absolutely zero animosity, but if that is not something that you like, then it sounds like Destiny is just not really your game. And I know that will come off as like snarky or rude, but like the way that I see it, that's just a fact of the matter. And there are other games, like for example, if you play a game like Borderlands, which is not a live service, but is a looter shooter, that is something that I think is much more suitable for those people because you go out, you do the thing, you find your good guns, and then there's no power creep, because there's no live service updates over 5 or 6 or 7 years. In a Borderlands game, you go out, you do the thing, and you have all your stuff, and then you just get to keep your stuff, and everything stays the same. And if you want to restart on a new character, then you can do that. Or you can keep all of your weapons and I guess just be happy forever. But the whole point of Destiny 2 is that it is an ongoing experience. And in a live service looter shooter, of course, as more time passes, they are always going to give you more reasons to hop into the game and to chase the new stuff, to get the new loot that's even more powerful than the stuff that you were working for last year. And again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that is the point of the game. You're supposed to enjoy jumping back into the game and getting the new stuff. So I guess all of this is to say that I do agree with the first half of your comment. The whole, the new updates to the armor system is a way to get players back into the game and back looking for new armor because, with the old armor system, it was just completely stale and people had their armor sets, they had their good stat rolls, and literally for years, some people out there just didn't even worry about armor drops because they already had the drops that they needed. But now there's so much more motivation, there's so much more reason to get out there and to find new armor sets. It's the second half of the comment that I think is kind of dumb here. Yes, this is getting us back in the loot treadmill, but I actually like having a reason to get in the game and, a new motivation to go out and find armor. I think that's pretty cool. And by the way, I'm actually just remembering for some of these takes, I actually did want to give like kind of a quick explainer for what some of these concepts are because Destiny 2 kind of has this weird thing where I know there are lots of people who used to play the game, they don't play the game anymore, but they still watch Destiny stuff on YouTube. Like when I'm watching a Destiny video and I open up the comments, I will almost always see at least one comment of somebody saying, oh, I haven't played Destiny in 2 years, but I still watch your videos for whatever reason. I feel like Destiny is kind of unique in that way. I haven't known of another game where people stop playing it but are still interested in like following the Destiny news. So for any people out there who are still interested in Destiny content like this and you don't know what Armor 3.0 is, basically Bungie has refreshed all of the armor stats. They have different names now, and they also have different functionality. Before, the function of armor was kind of minimal, especially with some specific armor stats, like they pretty much had no real bearing on gameplay, which made the armor loot chase kind of non-existent. There was also this weird thing where if any of your stats were above 100, then those were just wasted stat points. Like, you didn't get any benefit from having your stats be above 100. But now we have a new set of stats. They have new functions tied to them. And there's this really cool system where if the stat goes above 100, instead of just being a wasted stat, you actually unlock an extra perk from having that stat be over 100. And it will go up to 200. So the closer that it gets to 200, the stronger that enhanced benefit of the stat will be. And there are also armor set bonuses where you get special perks for wearing multiple pieces from one set of armor at a time. So for example, if you're wearing 2 pieces from a set of armor, then you get a perk from that. And then if you're wearing 4 pieces from one set of armor, you get that perk as well as an extra perk on top of that will be even more powerful. So overall, I think this is a great system. Like, it changes the gameplay in a great way. It gives you a reason to go out and find all of these new armor pieces, since you're gonna need different stat rolls with different armor sets and all that. And that's pretty much the gist of Armor 3.0. Obviously, like we talked about, some people aren't happy that they have to go back out into the game and actually play it to get more armor. I don't really understand where they're coming from, but that's kind of what we're getting at with this comment here. So I guess to sum up, if you don't like chasing loot, you should not play Destiny 2. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. The featured gear system killed the game. Bungie should not be telling us how to play. Okay, again, as a quick explainer, what Bungie's done with the featured gear system is given all new gear I think it's a 10% damage bonus just for using it. And now there's like a special little, you'll see a badge in the top left corner of the loot icon, which shows that it qualifies as new gear. And what they've done with all of the older exotics is they've taken a pool of, I think maybe like 30 or 40 of them, and they've called them featured gear. They get that same tag in the top left corner, and they get the same benefits that all of the new gear does. So yes, what this means in a nutshell is that Bungie wants people to use what's new. And as an idea, I really agree with this. I mean, again, not to harp too much on the Destiny 3 conversation, but something that would be so amazing with the Destiny 3 is that the scope would be much more limited as they were coming out of the gate with Destiny 3. They wouldn't have 1,000 weapons and 1,000, pieces of exotic armor that they have to worry about in order to tune the sandbox in a way that makes sense. So I think this is kind of like a half measure towards Destiny 3, where instead of wiping the loot pool clean, instead they're just going to give this small advantage to all of the new stuff, which is a much, much smaller loot pool. And then they have greater ability to fine-tune the sandbox within the new gear. I also feel like this is really good for new players because it's just such an easy way to see what is actually relevant within the game right now. And you could take it from me. I mean, I did play Destiny 2 way back during launch. I pretty much dropped it really quickly. And I've gotten back on from expansion to expansion, time to time. But it wasn't until probably Lightfall that I really got in and started playing regularly. So I'm still a semi-new player, I guess. But I remember that feeling of just not knowing what is actually relevant within the game at that moment. You don't know what weapons people are using. You're getting all of these drops from all over the game, and you're like, should I keep this weapon? Do people use this weapon? Does this matter? The same goes for armor, or it's when you're looking at your destinations map, it's should I do this activity? Is that what other people are doing? Is this worth doing? And this new system, I think, really remedies that by kind of just showing yes, here is what's new. And if you want to look at it as simply as possible, this is the stuff that actually matters right now. Now, I realize the downside to this is that, some people view it as Bungie really putting hard restrictions on what the meta is going to be. I understand that complaint, I really do. But I also feel like it's still very much viable to use gear that doesn't have the featured gear bonus. It's really only if you're trying to maximize for every little teeny tiny bit that you want to use all featured gear. But honestly, in my experience, you can use the older stuff and you'll still be fine running, dungeons or raids. It's not gonna make the biggest difference, but it's just there to kind of help. It's a little nudge to get people in that direction of, you should use what's new as opposed to using that same build that you've been using for 3 years or, whatever. But I do know that it doesn't seem like this has been very popular. I can't think of seeing another person online say that they actually like this system. I don't know if this is something that maybe Bungie will eventually roll back. like I've said, I think it's a good idea. Hopefully some people will be able to see that this is a good idea when it is eventually refreshed to have a new pool of, featured gear, because I feel like that's just such a great way, and it's easy for Bungie to kind of refresh the meta and get people out there and using different things, because ultimately that's what keeps the game fun. I think, sometimes people don't realize it, but the reason why the game becomes boring to them is that they get on and do the same thing with the same weapons over and over again. And so I think it's good for Bungie to kind of push you in a little bit in that direction of like, hey, don't you want to try something new? The new story is weird, but it's the most that I've enjoyed the Destiny narrative in a while. I 100% agree with this. I feel like this is the most interested in the Destiny narrative that I've maybe ever been, to be honest. I've wanted a narrative reboot for Destiny for a really long time. That's yet another reason why I think Destiny 3 would be such a good idea. Again, you can check out the link to my Destiny 3 video in the description below. But this does feel like the closest that we've gotten to that, because it's kind of like a fresh story. It's a fresh direction. We're still kind of carrying over, like, Ikora is, one of the main characters, and of course she's a legacy character. But we do have Lodi, who is completely new and also really great. I feel like the story behind Lodi was really interesting. I liked the voice acting for Lodi. And I think maybe most importantly for me is I feel that he was a good, how do I put this? He was so human. It was much easier to connect with Lodi than it is with lots of other Destiny characters, in my opinion. One of my complaints has always been that it's hard for me to connect with Savathun, who is so important to the story, when she barely has a face. She feels so alien and so foreign. And I know lots of, people aren't gonna agree with this, and of course they will probably be mad that I said this, but in general I feel like Destiny struggles with that, where these characters are really hard to connect to, and they come off so flat for that purpose. Lodi is very human. He's easy to connect with. I mean, he's just like a guy, of course. He's got some secrets that you uncover throughout the campaign, which was intriguing and I really liked. But it was much easier to connect with this story than most previous Destiny stories, in my opinion. And also, speaking of Ikora, I really do feel like this is the most that I've ever liked Ikora. We actually got some good characterization for her. Spoilers, I guess, if you haven't played it and you don't want to know, you can skip forward. But I really liked getting that little bit of backstory of her life before being a Guardian, when she was back on Earth. It's just the briefest moment, but you see her in a way more human way than you ever have before. She's you see her dressed as a normal person. She's got this cool hair. I think she's even carrying a lunch bag that says mom on it, if I remember right. So it makes you realize oh my gosh, she's actually a real person with a character and personality. Whereas in the Destiny storyline, I feel like Ikora and even Zavala for that matter have been really, really stale, really boring to listen to, really one note. It's not something that I've ever enjoyed, really, maybe with a few exceptions here and there. But I was really interested in seeing Ikora's backstory, and then you got to see her reaction to learning that information. That was pretty good stuff. And the other thing that the story did really well is kind of this nature of there being a grand mystery out in the cosmos, and there's all these unknown forces and unknown powers that are pulling the strings, because we all know that has been an important part of what the Destiny vibe is. That sense of there's a greater power out there, there's a greater calling, an all-encompassing mystery. I feel like the narrative of Edge of Fate did that really well. But I do just have to get one last little jab in here. If they did a true reboot with Destiny 3 and had a completely new set of characters with a new story, I do think that would be much better for the franchise than something like this, which is kind of a soft reboot, but not really quite enough to for it to feel like a new game, kind of as we talked about with that first opinion. I can't stand a matterspark. I just want to shoot enemies and use my subclass and be flashy and make big booms. I don't mind puzzles, but I would prefer if I got to stay in my body. The other two mechanics are fun, but I hate the ball. Okay, so as a refresher, Bungie, with this campaign, wanted to make a Metroidvania-style gameplay experience. Basically, what that means is that, well, first of all, if you ever played Metroid or Castlevania, those are the games that this genre is based off of, so you already have an idea of what that is. But my understanding is that you kind of unlock different tools and abilities as you go through the game, and as you do that, you may be able to revisit older parts of the game with your newfound abilities, and you'll have new pathways through or be able to do new things. So it's kind of like the different tools and abilities build on each other as the gameplay goes on. And with each new one, it kind of teaches you you view the world around you in a different way. When it's done well, it's really cool. It's extremely fun. And one of the Metroidvania elements that Bungie added for Edge of Fate is the ability to turn into this little ball, and it basically allows you to move through tighter spaces that you can't in your full-sized body. I knew, like, within an hour or two of playing this campaign, I knew that the ball was gonna be a big meme because it's kind of, I don't want to be too mean because I don't hate it, but it is kind of a nothing burger. Like, you get in the ball and then like roll through a pipe, and like that's kind of it for 90% of the campaign. And the other Metroidvania abilities are like a relocator gun, where basically you kind of like shoot this bullet that bounces off some things, and then it hits a panel and lets you like teleport. And there's another one called Mattermorph that basically, I mean, they're really quite dumb and simple now that I'm just saying them out loud, but Mattermorph allows you to, like, it will let you open up a predetermined path, pretty much. So you go and hit this thing that gives you the Mattermorph ability, and then you can create like a pathway to walk on. So none of these are really groundbreaking for gaming in general, or even just within Destiny. They're very simple, very straightforward. I feel like the big problem with their implementation of the Metroidvania idea is that most of the time, the puzzles don't come with using the abilities themselves. It's almost always more about just finding the little places where you pick up the ability. So for example, you get to an area and you can see that there's a little pipe that you have to roll through in order to move forward. And so now the game is like, okay, well, now I have to go find the little port where I turn into the ball so that I can roll through this. And it's the same thing with the relocator. You see the little pad on the wall and you're like, okay, so I'm gonna have to shoot that, but I guess I just have to go find a relocator now. And that becomes really exhausting, like near the end of the campaign. You're just moving, you're just trying to move through the mission, and then you see that little hole in the wall and you're like, ugh, okay, great, I gotta go find this thing now. I do feel like in the last 2 missions maybe, there are a couple of puzzle encounters, maybe like 3 or 4 puzzle encounters where I do feel like the Metroidvania mechanics come together in a good way that's fun and feels creative. Because I think the whole point should have been, that it builds up over the course of the campaign. Is what it should be. Similar to how like a dungeon or a raid works, where you get in and you learn a mechanic, and then it slowly builds on itself until that last encounter where you're juggling like 4 or 5 different ideas, and it's almost like you're speaking a different language, like you're speaking the language of the game with these new ideas that you've learned. There are 3 or 4 moments like that within the campaign where I feel like you are kind of juggling the different mechanics and you're looking at the world in a way that's different and fun. You have to you open up a little path with Mattermorph that's gonna require you to go into the ball and then, travel through. It's like little stuff like that where it does come together nicely, but that's legitimately like, I think 5% of the campaign. The rest of it is not bad mechanically, but it's like certainly uninspired in my opinion. It's a little slow, a little easy, and it's kind of just tedious when you have to go around and be like, oh, where's the relocator? Where can I turn into my ball? I will say that after the campaign, when you beat it and you get the ability to just turn into the ball at will, that makes it much better. Maybe they should have tried to adopt something like that with the entire campaign, like, I don't know, like with a tool wheel or something, where at any point you can turn into a ball or use Mattermorph or Relocator. I feel like that if they had done that from the beginning and designed the rest of the campaign with that in mind, they probably would have come up with something better. That's just what I think. But yeah, like I said, I didn't hate the ball. Like, it wasn't pissing me off, I think, as much as it was for other people. But I do understand that this is a big complaint And it's not, again, it's not like something that I play and would make me feel like I can finally recommend Destiny 2 to a non-Destiny player, because it's just not something that, in general, you know, for the larger gaming landscape, it's not something that I think is just really cool and that somebody is going to absolutely love who has no prior Destiny experience. The new Portal menu reminds me of mobile games, and not at all in a good way. I have to come out and say something here. I'm sure that this is going to rub people the wrong way. This is just something that I don't understand. But I know that, you know, mobile games have a reputation of having terrible monetization. We all know this. I'm not much of a mobile gamer, but like I've heard stories, I know what it's like. And I hear this opinion where it's like, oh, this looks like a mobile game, how terrible. I don't necessarily see how the Portal looking like a mobile game UI is such a bad thing. Those mobile games might have terrible monetization and like terrible pay to win gameplay mechanics, but I don't think that necessarily makes the UI design bad. So I don't understand how this is always like a, you know, this is such a bad thing when people see the Portal and they're like, huh, looks like a mobile game. I don't think that that's inherently a bad thing. That's maybe my most blazing hot take of this video. Also, I guess I should admit that I am a Portal defender. I feel like, and I already mentioned this, I think, but Destiny, there's so much fun stuff inside of the game, but it's like Bungie's trying their absolute hardest to make sure that the people don't know about it and that they can't get there. Up until now with the Portal, where it feels like it's kind of just, it's like wrapping a bow around the entire game, in my opinion, and just putting it right in front of your face. And there's a really cool system with these bonus focuses where it kind of like ping pongs you around the different parts of the game, and it allows you to kind of like shop through the Portal for different activities where you do have a choice of like, I can do a solo activity, or I can do fire team, or I could hop into Crucible. And depending on which one you have those little bonuses for, you might hop into that to get an extra reward. Or like, for example, I'm trying to get a really good roll of this new auto rifle Ahab Char. I still don't have I want a PvP roll for this thing. But it's nice because I can just look through the Portal and see if any of the activities are dropping this weapon. And then if I see it, then I can just play that activity. And it's kind of like getting rid of some element of the RNG, since I know it'll drop one. But there is still some randomization there because I don't know what activity I'm gonna end up playing. So I do feel like the Portal overall is great. I don't mind the UI. What bothers me about it right now is that we're still not seeing raids and dungeons in there, and it was my understanding that one of the main purposes of the Portal was that Bungie wanted to be able to surface these activities up, you know, to people's faces, because before it's like I would have to look up like, oh, what planet is this one dungeon on before I jump into it, because it's like I have no idea where it even is. And I thought that the Portal was supposed to solve that problem. So yes, overall, I think the Portal is a great step forward. It's a great idea. Slightly underbaked at the moment, but I do trust that Bungie will continue to flesh the Portal out, and I think it will get better and better. There was some drama behind the Destinations tab, which Bungie originally planned on deprecating with the introduction of the Portal, and they eventually walked back that decision after some backlash, which I was actually really happy to hear, because I do think that the Destinations tab is it's an integral part of the Destiny DNA. I think especially when you're playing through a campaign or any like story-based content, I still think that Destinations tab should be there, because it kind of helps you feel like you're inside of the world and that you really are flying between planet to planet. And so I'm happy that they decided they are going to keep supporting that. I feel like the Portal works more for those moments when you're just like, you know, you're grinding certain weapon drops, or you're grinding your light level, or whatever it is, like any end game content. I feel like the Portal is kind of like your one-stop shop for that. And then you have the destinations for the more RPG side of the game. Destiny is dead. Edge of Fate is the nail in the coffin. So, you know, of course, when it comes to Destiny, like, there's always gonna be 1,000 of this exact comment. People have been writing eulogies for Destiny 2 for like, how long at this point? 5-6 years maybe? It's kind of just like a tradition when it comes to Destiny. Although I feel like you have to admit that there's something different about the Edge of Fate that I don't think was true with previous expansions of Destiny 2. I mean, even if you just want to break it down by the numbers, then I think it becomes very clear that something is different now. We're looking at like Destiny 2's lowest numbers for a expansion ever. And Destiny 2 as a game kind of lives on that big bump that they get every year for the expansion, where, you know, there's a huge spike in players and then it slowly drops throughout the year until the next expansion where it jumps back up. And to be fair, we won't know the full effect of this until we've seen Destiny 2's next expansion, since now they are not doing one big expansion every year, but two medium-sized expansions twice a year. Sorry, that was confusing. So two medium-sized expansions a year, as opposed to one big expansion a year. So in theory, there should be another sizable bump in player count when the next expansion comes out, which will be much sooner than a year from Edge of Fate. But still, I think that Destiny 2 really is in a rough spot for, you know, other players out there. I've said multiple times in this video that I'm still having a lot of fun with Destiny. It's like shocking to me how good the game is when you couple that with all of the bad press that surrounds it and all the negativity. I think the main problem is that you have lots of legacy players who kind of have a chip on their shoulder. They're a little jaded, and at this point they are not, you know, they're just not really interested in the game anymore, but they feel like they have to keep playing it, I guess, even though they don't enjoy it. And the new player onboarding experience has been so bad for so long that the new players aren't coming in. The players that are still playing the game like only have negative things to say about it. And I think that there's like a minority of players like me who did manage to break through the barriers of the game to kind of like get into it in recent years, who actually do enjoy it. I mean, Destiny 2 is a great game. Like, I'm just gonna say it. I think it's great, but we are in a rough spot right now, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but I just have to. Destiny 2 has really overstayed its welcome, I think, and a perfect plan would have been to do the final shape and then maybe have 1 or 2 years of follow-up content, you know, kind of like an epilogue, really, and give Bungie a little extra time. Of course, in this scenario, they would have had to start work on Destiny 3 way before final shape, but that just seemed like such a great time to close the book on Destiny 2 after the final shape had released. And I think people would have been really excited for that, even if it meant that Destiny 2 was going to go into maintenance mode with, you know, no updates for a certain amount of time. Again, the ideal situation would have been that Bungie had the foresight to understand that after the final shape, they were going to need to do something new in a completely new direction. And, you know, they started work on this way back in the past. But I still think that even if they decided right now that they need to wind down production on Destiny 2 in order to start production on Destiny 3, I think it would be a win-win all around. Of course, that would mean that people would stop playing Destiny 2, you know, as they waited for Destiny 3, I mean, because there would be less updates, and also there's a lot of people out there who would be thinking, like, why would I play Destiny 2 if I know that everything's gonna get reset with Destiny 3 in the future? So there's a lot of that, but I kind of see all of that as also a hidden bonus of Destiny 3, because if you take a break from Destiny for, you know, 6 months, a year, 2 years, then it's always really fun to return to the game. I think there are a lot of players out there who can relate to this. If you get on and play every single day, eventually, you know, you get tired of it, and then even when the new content drops, you burn through that so quickly. But when you take a little break and you come back, it's like you're reinvigorated and everything is so fun again. And it's okay that you don't play every single day for a year. Taking that little break to develop Destiny 3, where even the most dedicated players, where everybody was taking a break, I think would result in a huge amount of excitement for Destiny 3 when it did finally come out. But that's just what I'm saying. I know some people are really opposed to the Destiny 3 thing. I don't know why. Again, check out the video. I have my full case for Destiny 3 kind of laid out nice and neatly there. As for Destiny 2 though, since it does seem like Bungie is committed to updates for this game, I don't know what the future holds for it. It certainly doesn't look good right now. It's hard to imagine that something as popular as Destiny 2 could die. You know, like, I don't know if they're gonna stop development on the game and shut down the servers. That seems absurd. But we all know that Bungie's been in a rough financial situation. There's way less people working on the game now than there was a couple years ago. And the game just continues to bleed players. It's kind of it's sad. It's tragic, really. And who knows what could happen. I think that if they're not gonna do Destiny 3 or something that's like Destiny 3, I don't really have any ideas for what could, quote unquote, save Destiny 2 as the game that it currently is. And you know what? That seems like a good place to end this episode of Between the Lines. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening to this random conversation about Destiny 2. I doubt that there's gonna be like a big amount of viewers on this video since, as we discussed, Destiny 2 interest is kind of at like an all-time low right now. But hey, if you're watching this, thank you for clicking on this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. As always, you can follow me over on Threads if you want to be a part of the next episode. That's where I'm going to post the next prompt for, whatever the next theme is going to be. So I will leave that linked in the description below. Thank you again for watching, and stay gold.